So the next topic we're going to be doing is the digestive system. And before we can really get into the digestive system, we have to look at a lot of revision that you've done from grade 8 and 9. So in grade 8, for example, you did the nutrition of animals. So you looked at carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores, and dental formula, for example. And then in grade 9, you looked at all the body systems, and digestive system was one of them that you did, obviously, in reduced information. So I'm going to very quickly go over all the revision work or the stuff that you have or should have heard about prior to starting with grade 11 work. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because obviously it's revision. So if we'd have a look at, first of all, starting off with definitions and revision, then we have the following definitions that we have to go over. First of all, if we look at digestion is talking about the breakdown of food into smaller pieces, smaller substances. And there's a point of that. It's not just because we need to pass it out of our body. We are breaking it down so that we can retrieve the nutrients from that food. And that those nutrients then will be absorbed into the bloodstream or into the body to be used. So digestion speaks of the breakdown of food into smaller substances so that the nutrients can be used. In saying that it's the breakdown of food, we actually have two types of breakdowns of food, and those include mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Now, mechanical, if you think just of the word mechanical, you should think of machines or some kind of process. So mechanical says like physical breakdown. Chewing, for example, is a physical breakdown. So I want you to think with mechanical, I want you to think of like mashing potatoes. It's a physical thing that we do to break down that food. Chemical digestion is adding a substance to, or adding a chemical to the food to break it down. And that will be the use of enzymes within the body. The addition of enzymes, the addition of hydrochloric acid, the addition of any kind of liquid that is going to make it softer for the breakdown to be able to occur, or not softer, but more, for lack of a better word, breakdownable. Okay, the chemicals are going to work on the structure of the compound that we are trying to break down, and therefore we are going to be able to break it down a lot easier. When we have broken down this food, so we in the human body, our digestive system makes use of both mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. And once our food is sort of in the stomach, from the stomach, between the stomach and the small intestine, we have then broken down our food. The point of breaking down that food was to obtain or retrieve the nutrients that we need from that food. So that those nutrients have to then be absorbed by the body so that those nutrients can move to wherever we need them. So absorption says that the nutrient, the substance, is going to move across the cell membrane either by osmosis or diffusion to be able to travel to its destination. If we speak of the digestive system, I'm as graphic as I can be when you don't see my face. I want you to imagine a pipe, a tube, hose pipe. Let's think of a hose pipe. From the point of attachment to the tap to the end of the hose pipe where you are watering your plants, your host pipe, sorry, grade 11's my voice isn't working, my brain isn't working, just deal with me. So from the point of attachment from the tap to the point where you are watering your plants, doesn't matter how many kinks or curves or turns or whatever your hose pipe has. It doesn't matter if your hose pipe has been rolled up or is stretched out, is wrapped around a tree, doesn't matter. If you have to extend it from one end to the other, it is one one long tube. Okay, sorry. The same can be said for our digestive system. Okay, even though we have organs that are involved, those organs form like sort of attachments to the host pipe. But so let's say, for example, we put on an attachment and then we put another pipe into that. So it's just an attachment that then the water would flow through and get to the next part of the pipe. Our digestive system, therefore, is referred to as an alimentary canal, one long tube. And really, as graphic as I can be, your alimentary canal, your digestive system, is basically a tube from your mouth to your bum hole. That's basically, food is going to pass from your mouth where you ingest it and be broken down all along this pathway until eventually it travels to the toilet. Obviously, the toilet is not part of your alimentary canal, but I'm trying to be as graphic as possible without actually being filthy. All right, so alimentary canal says all the organs that make up this pathway, this pipe through which food will travel. All right. If we look at your mechanical digestion, the first type of mechanical digestion that happens. So think of an apple. I take an apple, I bite into the apple, I chew on those pieces. That chewing motion that I am doing is called mastication. For whatever reason, in grade 11, we don't call it chewing of food. We call it mastication because it involves mechanical breakdown as well as chemical breakdown because of the addition of saliva. Now, grade 11s, I find every time when I have grade 11 sitting in front of me and I'm teaching this lesson and I say mastication, then some of the boys and sometimes some of the girls all look at each other and snicker under their breath and ha ha ha, and it's so funny. And so I'm just pointing out the word is mastication, not masturbation. Please get it right. If you tell me you masturbate your food, we are going to have a problem. Please masticate your food and remember that as a definition. All right. Now that you've had a giggle to yourself, the next definition then is peristalsis. Now you've heard about peristalsis. You did peristalsis in grade 9. When the muscles of my alimentary canal, especially the muscles of the esophagus and, for example, in the small intestine, when they are moving and contracting and then relaxing. So imagine contracting means I squeeze a Coke bottle. Relaxing means I let go of the Coke bottle and I squeeze and I let go and I squeeze and I let go. And if I have to do that, imagine, okay, here's another thing. Imagine a stocking, okay, or the lining that they use when they're putting boerewors, when they're stopping boerewors. Okay, so they take this lining and then they take the meat and they put the meat inside this tube. When they are trying to fill up the tube, they're going to push that meat further and further, and they're going to sort of push and release and push and release. So there's going to be this alternating contraction, pushing, squeezing against it, and then relaxing too, and then pushing and relaxing. And so that's what's happening in your digestive system, especially, as I said, in your esophagus and your small intestine, to move food along. So that the muscles are going to contract, make smaller, to push it forward, and then relax again, and then move towards the food again, and then contract and relax, and contract and relax. And that is peristalsis, alternating contraction and relaxation of the muscles to move the food along the alimentary canal. The next definition then, number 7, is called chyme. Now, you've heard of acid chyme, I think. Now, when our food has been partially digested and it is in the stomach, that partially digested food is called chyme. So in other words, it's already sort of in the mouth. We chewed our food. There was mastication. We broke it down mechanically. We broke it down partially through chemicals with saliva. Then we had peristalsis through our esophagus, and then the food entered our stomach. So that by the time it entered our stomach, it was already partially digested. It then mixes that partially digested food with the enzymes and the liquids and the acids in the stomach. So it makes up this mixture called chyme. And because the stomach is a particularly acidic environment, when it leaves the stomach, it is now acid chyme. So it's important that partially digested food is chyme. Right, the next one, and we're going to talk about this a lot in a later lesson, but you've heard of this before, finger-like projections called villi that increase the surface area. And I've said this to you before, and I will always say this. Anytime I hear the word villi, I must think increased surface area. And every time I hear the word surface area, I must know it'll increase the efficiency. More surface area, more processing can happen. So therefore, if I'm going to increase the surface area of digestion or of absorption, then more digestion and more absorption can occur. All right, we will do villi in greater detail, so right now I'm not going to carry on with that. Number 9, hepatic portal system. Now, the hepatic portal system, when you did the heart last year in grade 10, you learned, or you should have heard about the hepatic portal system. This word shouldn't be strange to you. But you would have done all the arteries and veins that lead from the heart and to the heart. And you should have noticed, or should have been told, that there is no vein that returns from the stomach or from the gut, the stomach, the small intestine, straight to the heart. Okay, our blood travels to the heart, from the heart to the stomach, to the small intestine, to provide those organs with the necessary oxygen, obviously, to perform their processes. But then we don't have a structure from the liver, from the gut straight to the heart, because we don't want the nutrients to be absorbed into the bloodstream and be taken to the heart. Because what if, for example, I've eaten something bad, or I've eaten poison, or I've eaten something that has nutrients that are going to be absorbed that I do not want to be traveling straight directly to my heart, or I've eaten a fatty meal. Do I want that fat to travel directly to my heart? No. So instead, there is what is called the hepatic portal system that then takes the blood that's been absorbed, the nutrients that's been absorbed by the gut, and takes it to the liver. And we're going to talk a lot about what the liver does in a later lesson. But basically the liver, the one thing that you already should know about your liver, you all know that if someone drinks too much, they have problems with their liver. And that is because the liver detoxifies the blood. So it removes all the toxins out of the blood. So we're going to have this hepatic portal system that takes the nutrients to the liver. The liver will clean that blood and make sure that only the good nutrients are in that blood, and then send it where it needs to go. We will do the hepatic portal system in greater detail as well. And then the last definition, and I think you did this in grade 10 as well, is homeostasis. Now, homeostasis is when we balance the environment inside our body. So if your temperature, for example, needs to be, body temperature is 37 degrees Celsius, and you are cold, like today is very cold, then your body is doing certain processes to try and keep you warm. So shivering, for example, but obviously that has nothing to do with this topic. But those are processes that our body does to try and bring things back to normal, to where it's supposed to be. So in this situation, homeostasis is going to talk about the food that we eat. Now, we just did cellular respiration. So when we did cellular respiration, we said that the food that we eat is glucose. We break it down into glucose, and then we obtain that glucose and we turn that glucose into energy. So where homeostasis is going to come in is, if my glucose levels are high, what does my body need to do to bring them back down again? And if my glucose levels are low, what does my body need to do to try and restore those levels? So we will be talking about glucose homeostasis in this chapter. And just as a heads up to you, we are going to talk about homeostasis in the next 4 chapters that we do, 4 topics. And although they have nothing to do with each other, so like, for example, how you balance your temperature, which you'll do in matric, and how you balance your glucose levels and how you balance your carbon dioxide levels, those things have nothing to do with each other, but they all have a link to homeostasis. And that is very important because in grade 12, you do the endocrine system and you retouch on all of these, and we don't spend a lot of time on it because a lot of it came from grade 11. So I'm saying to you now already, I mean, I know you're not doing essays this year, but in previous years, I ask homeostasis in essays because it's so, so, so important. So I don't want you to you'll see when I do these lessons, I'm going to split them up into different videos, and homeostasis will be the last one, and it'll only be about 4 slides. And then you'll think, oh, it's only 4 slides. The other stuff was like 20 slides, so it must be less important. I am saying from the get-go, it is very important to know homeostasis, grade 11s. All right, so moving on. So as I said, digestion is when we break up the food that we ingest. We're going to break it up either chemically or mechanically, and it's going to be broken down into simpler, smaller pieces. And those smaller pieces, those nutrients that are going to be released, are going to be absorbed by the body. When they are used by the body, we call that assimilation. Okay, we'll get to that as well. So let's say, for example, I've eaten a potato. If I know from grade 10 a potato is starch. If I break that potato down, starch will be broken down into glucose. Glucose is a carbohydrate. Glucose is the simplest form of a carbohydrate. What am I going to do with that glucose? I'm going to make energy. I'm going to use it for cellular respiration. And cellular respiration, I'm making that energy so that I can do my metabolic processes. So when I'm doing my metabolic processes, like growing and moving and keeping warm and reproducing, and it's all the things that we do every day that we don't realize we do, those metabolic processes, while we do them, we are using the products of digestion to do them. So that is assimilation, using the result of digestion. Okay. Right, I've said this already, grade 11, so I'm really not going to spend a lot more time on it. However, I want to point out this over here. You actually get 2 types of churning movements in the digestive system. Peristalsis, which we've done, and segmentation. So peristalsis is this alternate contraction and relaxation of the muscles to move the food along. Segmentation is moving the food in segments, but it's mixing and churning. So the chemical compounds that have been broken down are now mixing with each other in the digestive system. All right, and then I've said everything else, so you should be okay to move on and read this slide all by yourselves. Now, again, I think you spoke about this in grade 9, but I'm just going to touch on it very quickly. Once I've broken down my food and I've absorbed the nutrients and I'm assimilating the nutrients, then I'm no longer, when I'm doing absorbing and assimilating, I'm no longer in the digestive system, right? That's happening in the bloodstream. But something is left over. We know the fact that you need to go to the toilet means that something is left over even though you've absorbed nutrients. And that leftover bit is largely thanks to the existence of fiber. So when I do the digestive system in detail, I'm going to explain this better. But basically, if you've got food and you've broken it down into smaller pieces and you've removed the nutrients that you need, whatever's left over is the waste that you eject into the toilet, obviously then. That waste is mostly made up of fiber, and that fiber comes from the food that we eat. A lot of food that we eat contains fiber, and I'm sure you would have heard in like all the Kellogg's ads or the Weet-Bix ads or whatever, all the porridges, fiber is essential for a good gut health, because if you don't have enough fiber in your diet, you're going to have a stool that is hard to pass, so either diarrhea or a constipation stool. So fiber is the stuff that makes up the bulk of the feces, and the bulk of the stuff that the muscles in the small intestine and stomach contract against when peristalsis is happening. Fiber makes your stool softer, so it makes your feces softer, so that when you are passing that feces, it is easier and softer to pass along. And as I said, prevents constipation. Anything that has not been absorbed by the hepatic portal system that is not good for you, so that it doesn't want to pass along to the rest of your body into your bloodstream, fiber will attach to it or absorb it so that it is passed out of your body, so that when you are passing stool, you are releasing those chemicals, those substances, those poisons, whatever you want to call them, from your body. What is most essential just to know about fiber is that first sentence there, that it provides the bulk and it softens the stool. Right, this is revision from grade 8, I think it was, where you spoke about the dental formula. So obviously the dental formula comes up in the fact that when we masticate our food, when we chew, we are chewing with teeth. Now, different animals have a different dental formula and have different combinations of types of teeth because of their specific type of diet. So whatever food they are eating, their teeth need to match that type of food to be able to effectively break that food into smaller pieces. The dental formula speaks about how many of each type of tooth you have in your upper jaw, maxilla, and your lower jaw, the mandible. It also splits the formula is split into across the midline. So it only speaks for half of your teeth, half of your mouth in any case. So here, I call these my bunny teeth, right? Those two, those are the teeth that you would use to bite into an apple, right? It would half this, so where this line is, and only speak for one side. So these teeth are being spoken for at the top, and these teeth are being spoken for at the bottom. And so you would have half of the mouth over half of the mouth. To find, obviously, the full complement of teeth, you would then double that number. All right, so as I said, from the midline outwards. So if we look at omnivores, now humans are omnivores, obviously animals. Forget that. Humans are omnivores. We eat both plant and meat material. So therefore our teeth need to match the type of food that we eat. So we need to be able to, for example, chew an apple, but tear biltong, and also then crush or like compress food. So therefore we need the widest complement of teeth. You're not going to find, for example, a lion with molars and premolars. You're going to find them mostly with ripping kind of teeth in the front, and then perhaps molars and premolars to crush bone, where, for example, we as humans are not, well, I hope, crushing bone. Right, so our dental formula is 2 to 1 to 2 to 3 over 2 to 1 to 2 to 3. And that is in the ratio of incisors. So you'll see here, it's over here. Incisors to canines to premolars to molars. I will do just now the different types of teeth with you. That is saying from half of your mouth, if you put your finger now in between your two bunny teeth, actually do it while I'm doing this lesson. I'm doing it while I teach you. My finger is between my two bunny teeth. So in other words, my finger is there. All right? Then I count. I've got 2 incisors. 1, 2. Then I've got a canine. Okay, if you actually go and push your finger down, you'll feel that that's a sharper tooth than the ones that you've just passed along. So then I've got 1 canine. Then I've got 2 premolars. And then I've got 3 molars going back down or into where my wisdom teeth are. All right? And it's the same for the bottom jaw, and then it's the same, obviously, if you were doing the right now, then it's the same for the left as well. So incisors are your biting and cutting type of teeth. So think of an apple, and think, if you're going to bite into an apple now, which teeth are you using? You are using your incisors, what I've just called your bunny teeth. Okay. Then I want you to think of a piece of biltong, not a nice cut piece, one of those where they've hung it and it's a smaller, like hung dry piece, and you're going to rip it into pieces and chew it. When you are thinking of that ripping motion that you are going to do, you are using your canines. All right, and then when you are thinking of you just chewing a meal, so you eating a piece of steak, you are not an animal unless you act like one when you eat, I don't know, but you're using a knife and fork, so you cut your piece of steak. So there's no ripping and biting necessary, and you are chewing. Where are you chewing? I want you to imagine you're chewing at the back of your mouth with your molars and premolars. So those are your crushing and grinding food. All right. In herbivores, so we as human beings are omnivores. We've just done the omnivore dental formula. In herbivores, herbivores have what is called a horny pad. So when you were in grade 8 or 9 and you learned about that, you thought it was hilarious, and hopefully you've grown up a little bit since then. But this top jaw is just basically this cutting pad, almost like when you are chopping vegetables and you're using a wooden board underneath the vegetable. That wooden board is the horny pad of a herbivore. So the top jaw is this pad against which it's going to chew and crush food. In the bottom jaw of a herbivore, it has 6 incisors. It also has 2 canines that are chisel shaped. Okay, so in other words, chisel shaped means they are shaped like the incisor. I'm telling you now, so you can see that this line is obviously in the wrong place. This line should be here, sorry. But it's 0 to 0 to 3 to 3. So that's saying 0 incisors in the top, 0 canines, 3 premolars and 3 molars, the top jaw. The bottom jaw, and this is only obviously one side, guys. The bottom jaw has 3 incisors, 1 canine, 3 premolars, and 3 molars. So remember I said double this, so therefore you'll see 6 incisors in the bottom jaw and 2 canines in the bottom jaw. I will never ask you the dental formula of a herbivore. Never, ever, ever, ever. Or how many incisors or how many canines they have. This is just for you to understand that, compare 0 to 0 to 3 to 3 with 2 to 1 to 2 to 3, and you can see that the nutrition is different between a carnivore and omnivore and a herbivore, for example. All right. Then there is this gap between incisors and molars of herbivores that allows for the tongue to have space to move and mix the food with the saliva. That gap is called a diastema. That is a nice little one-word term right over there. Okay. When herbivores eat, they only eat plant matter. Now, plants, have a cellulose cell wall. Cellulose in itself is a very difficult compound to break down, to digest. So, animals that are eating only plant material, those are called ruminants, by the way. Those are called herbivores. But those herbivores have an additional chamber to their stomach. And that additional chamber contains bacteria that will help them to break down this cellulose. We did sort of speak about this. I know I touched on this with my classes when we did bacteria. So an animal that has a multi-chambered stomach, an extra chamber to its stomach, that contains bacteria to break down cellulose, those animals are called ruminants. That's also a nice little one-word term. All right. And then obviously the last bullet there, if you are only eating spinach and grass and plant material, you're going to need to eat a whole lot more of that plant material to obtain the same nutrients that you would from a piece of steak, for example. So because herbivores are only eating plant material, they need to eat large quantities of plant material to be able to make up for their energy consumption. And then in carnivores, remember that carnivores are predators. They're going to hunt and kill their food. They are going to rip that food apart. They are going to need to crush bones. So their teeth are going to be very different. Please, guys, there's a difference between a predator and a scavenger. And therefore their dental formula would also be different. A predator, a lion, for example, is actually going to do the action of hunting its food and killing it and then eating it. A scavenger doesn't have to do the hunting. It doesn't have to kill the animal first. So it doesn't need the same type of teeth. It is just going to eat from the carcass of the animal that has already been killed. Okay. I don't need you to know about how many teeth lions have and how many incisors they have, for example, or how many canines. But you do need to understand that if you look at the number of canines and incisors that they have, it is more because of the type of food that they are eating. Now, they also have premolars and molars, but their premolars and molars are not cusp-shaped like ours, flat and cusp-shaped. They are pointy-shaped, and they are called carnassials. Those carnassials are going to be used to cut the meat, but also to crush bones. Okay, and So what is most important in this whole presentation or in this slide is definitions again, one-word terms: predators, scavengers, carnassials. Right. Okay. If we look at the digestive system, and this is now putting all those little definitions we did in the beginning all to good use. So if we look at how we are going to digest food, we are first going to put the food into our mouth. That is ingestion. We are then going to chew the food, mastication. Then there will be propulsion happening. The food is going to move, propel, through two methods, either peristalsis or segmentation. That food is then going to be broken down via digestion. And there are two types of digestion, either mechanical or chemical. When that food has been broken down, the nutrients will be absorbed into the bloodstream. Those nutrients from the bloodstream will be sent to different organs to be used, which is assimilation. Whatever is left in our digestive system, that the fiber and the non-nutritive substances, is going to be egested out of our body through the process of defecation. So just that, those are the processes then. So ingestion, taking in food. Peristalsis, we've done. Digestion, we've done. Absorption, nutrients and taking them up into the blood, so we've done that. And then transportation would be, as I said, when we have absorbed those nutrients, where do they go and where are they taken to be used? So that is transportation. And then assimilation, the use of them for metabolic processes. All right, and then lastly, egestion then, as I said, removal, defecation, taking undigested remains and getting rid of them. Grade 11s, in preparation of one of your next topics that we're going to do, I want to say this: egestion is not the same as excretion. Okay? Excrement and egestion is not the same. I want you, and I'll explain that when I do excretion, why it's not. Okay, but excretion basically has to do with unwanted substances getting rid of in the body. So that is when we take out the poisons and the bad things and the non-nutritive substances that have been absorbed and we get rid of them. That is excretion. We do that via urine. Okay. Egestion is the removal of undigested waste, and that is through the process of defecation. Okay, making feces and pushing it out of the body. So that is why there is a difference there. That then concludes the revision stuff that you've done. And yay, in the next lesson that I do, we will start with the digestive system.